Welcome to Built to Win, the podcast created to help you level up your business game by developing a success mindset made for the long run. In this episode, Neora's Dave Fleming talks with Shalon Murphy, an international marketing director who has built a multi-seven-figure online business with Neora. Shalon tells us how Neora provided an unexpected business opportunity and helped her rediscover herself. She also shares how she keeps herself motivated during tough days, how she overcame mom guilt, and offers her time-tested tips for turning obstacles into success.
Hey, welcome back everybody to Built to Win. I am super excited to be with you today in this episode with Shalon Murphy, who is an entrepreneur and a mom and just an absolute rock star when it comes to business. So I've known Shalon for a few years now, and we've gotten to hang out in some really cool places. Been in Mexico and wow, just done a lot of cool stuff. But Shalon, for those that don't know you like I know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, that's a loaded question, Dave. But nice to meet everybody. My name is Shalon Murphy, and I am actually from a city called Fishers, Indiana, which is right outside Indianapolis. I've been married for 18 years to my husband, Patrick. We have 3 children. My daughter is now 17. Then I have 2 boys. They are 15 and 12, so we are really in the midlife of parenting. We're kind of past the kid toddler stage. And now, every moment I feel like, oh my gosh, like just grasping on to every moment, every memory possible while we still are in this, dynamic of having everyone home before my daughter leaves for college. So, we navigate different aspects from sports to, we do this business full time, and then we have some rental properties and things. So life is very full, and that's how I like it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that you like it that way, or at least it's working for you that way. If you don't like it, it's definitely working. Yeah.
I do. I think I would be, bored if it wasn't full. So that's something that, I always am looking for something to, like a memory to make or a tradition to start or things like that to really make the most for the time that we have together.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. It's like you've only got so many hours on this planet. You gotta make them count, right?
Absolutely.
So tell me, okay, so you mentioned you're doing this business full time, and maybe people don't know what this business might be, and then rental properties, and then so how do you describe to people what it is that you do?
So I actually tell people that I do marketing and sales for an anti-aging company, and people are always like, tell me more. Skincare, hair care, wellness, weight management. I don't know of a human being that can't benefit from the products that we do marketing for. And then I'm also a business coach and help women develop online businesses that can be anywhere from extra money to creating a full-time and beyond income. So I kind of like to also say I'm like a business therapist, because I do feel like being an entrepreneur and helping other entrepreneurs can involve, being an entrepreneur is a roller coaster. That is what you sign up for. It's ups, it's downs. And I never had owned my own business before doing this. My husband did. So I watched that, but I'd never personally experienced it. So I feel very passionate about helping women kind of through that roller coaster.
No, that's really admirable, because I think a lot of people really love the idea of being an entrepreneur or owning their own business. But I think once they get into it and there's the ups and downs, like you mentioned, there's a lot of emotion around that. And how do you, is that something that you run into as you're coaching people?
Oh, yes. So, I mean, even me personally, I took everything personal at the beginning. Like, it was about me, and they were saying no to me as a human, and that crushed me as a avid people pleaser, Dave. That was a real hard pill to swallow. So I think for me, it was like after a while, I realized, oh my gosh, this actually isn't about me. And so it's actually very easy for me to see the best in people and what they're capable of. So that isn't a challenge to kind of relay that into people, but it is you have to remind people what they're capable of. And who they are and what they offer, because people are very quick to tell themselves that they are not capable of or they're not worthy of. So it's been really neat to be able to be a part of a lot of people's different journeys of watching where they start and how they're able to kind of grow and progress as a person throughout it.
That's really, no, that's really fascinating because you're right. And we've seen it. I've seen it in this business. I've seen it in lots of businesses where people, why do you think that is? Like, why do you think people just automatically assume that they're not good enough or they're not capable enough or what did you say? They're not worthy of
Mhm.
success? Like,
Yeah,
why do you
like,
think
I
that
think some
is?
people are scared of it, to be honest. Like maybe they know what they're capable of and they're like fearful, like what happens once I get it. I honestly, it's fascinating to me also. And I think everyone has a little bit of it in them, a self-doubt of something. It's, stepping outside your comfort zone is hard. That's not brand new information to anybody. But I think most people look at success as someone who tried something and succeeded. And really, the success is happening when no one's watching, and all of the failures and all of the problems that you really have to be a very good problem solver. And most times people think I'm not cut out for this is a moment when either people quit or they decide to figure it out and keep moving forward. So that's kind of what I try and help coach, teach, and train is you're not doing it wrong. You're not nothing. This is just where most people quit. This is the hard part of being an entrepreneur, the part that isn't on Instagram, the part that isn't advertised as working for yourself. This is the hard part.
Yeah. That's really insightful because I think people see, especially on social media these days, you see the highlight reel, right? You don't see
Yeah.
reality, you don't see the behind the scenes, you don't see the grind. And you and I know how hard people grind to make that look so effortless and make it look glamorous. And it is. And there definitely is that, like when we're in Tulum or when we're in Jackson Hole, and it is fun and
Mhm.
it is cool.
Yes.
But that's like the 30-second clip that doesn't show all the work that went into it.
Mhm. For
So,
sure.
how long have you been doing this business that you're in now?
So I've actually been doing this for 11 years, which Dave is the longest outside of being a mother and a wife, the longest I've ever done anything. I've never, 11 years, that's a decade. That's over a decade.
Yeah, it
And
is.
it's crazy because I had absolutely, this is not my background. So I went to school for teaching, which is why I use my hands a lot. That's just, I think, a teacher trait. And I did teach first grade for a short amount of time. And then once we started having children, I really wanted to, it was important for me and Patrick that I did stay home with them and I wanted to teach my own kids, right? Like all of the life skills and all the things. And so he worked about 70 to 80 hours a week. And sometimes he traveled. And then we got the great news that his job was going to be open 7 days a week. So we were like, great, now you'll never be home. So, whenever I found this, my kids were 6, 4, and 1. Um, Patrick was really never home. And his work environment that he was in at that time was really exhausting for him. He was not necessarily happy or fulfilled, but it was a job. We lived comfortably. So I can't say I was sitting and like praying for some big opportunity. I really loved being a stay-at-home mom. But I will say that I feel like bringing fun into whatever you do, I am very intentional. I take fun very serious.
I can vouch for that.
Yes.
Which I think we should, honestly. Like I think that's
Yes. I
important.
think it's very important, especially if life isn't going the way you want it to and you don't feel like it. But I remember one day I was a stay-at-home mom, but personal development has always been a part of who I am. Personal development has always come naturally to me, probably from how I was raised. And so thinking positive and trying to look for the best outcome and all of those things, what can you do? I never wanted to be a victim of any sort of situation. So there's always something you can do. And no matter what it is, what can I do? Some things are out of your control, but maybe I can just control my reaction to the situation, whatever it may be. And he kept coming home and saying, he was in charge of a sales team. And it was the culture of his job. The people worked really long hours. They worked a lot on commission. He was in charge of the sales team. So there was a lot of recruiting and so it was just an exhausting thing. And as his wife, I could, make sure the house is clean and make sure the kids are fed. And when he came home, it was like, a positive environment. But I really kept thinking, like, what can I do? And so I actually came to Patrick one day and I said, I think I can help your work environment. And he was like, what do you mean? And I said, I came across this book, The Fish Philosophy. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, from the Seattle Pike Place Fish Market.
Yeah.
So I told him, and I came across this after college, and I said, I think I can help your work environment, which will in turn help some of his other issues. So I put together an entire proposal for his boss about coming in once a month and teaching and training. Basically, the philosophy is built on 4 things, and now I'm on the spot and I'm not going to remember what they are, but it's have fun, be present. There's 2 more. Be there. So like no, I already said that. I can't remember what the other 2 are. They'll come to me in a minute. But basically, the idea is bringing fun into the workplace, making it more meaningful, focusing on relationships to create a better atmosphere so that whatever you're doing. So it was based out of Seattle, where all these fishmongers were there at 5 o'clock in the morning, slinging dead fish. And they were the happiest group of people, and no one could understand why. And the reason was they lived that philosophy. They were like, we got to be here anyway. Why are we going to be miserable? Let's have fun with it. Let's create, moments of, let's have good relationships. And so this outwardly horrific job turns into this huge philosophy of like what every work environment should kind of embrace. So his boss approved it, and I was like, give me 6 months. And so I came in once a month. And in that first meeting, you may not be surprised to know this because I am a little bit of an overdoer. I brought in coolers of massive dead fish, like big fish that were dead. And I brought garbage bags, and I asked for everyone, and no one knew like why I was there, what I was doing. And so I brought them outside, put them in garbage bags, and literally had them toss. We did a dead fish toss, and they were like, what is happening? And that's kind of how I introduced the philosophy to them. I had some of the harshest, bulky, construction men come up to me in tears after some of these. They'd never been introduced to personal development. They'd never been introduced to creative, a positive environment or any of those things. And I really did make a difference and started an entire program for the significant others of everyone who worked there. Because I said, now I think you need all the people whose husbands are never home. They also need appreciation, and they also need some. So I did that for maybe close to 2 years. And really, I remember thinking, if I ever owned my own business, that's the philosophy I would embrace, is you're going to be there anyway, have fun doing it. And then I found Neora by accident on being a customer. And once I started building this business and building a team, I realized like, this is how I can do that. And lo and behold, a couple of years in, I got asked to speak at a meeting in Seattle, Washington. And I went to the Pike Place, and I stood behind the counter, and I caught I was in a white coat, and they were like, maybe you don't want to do this. I was like, oh, I want to do this. And it was just kind of a full circle moment for me of like, I do own my own business now. And this is a philosophy that I feel like I live and breathe throughout my team. So that was a pretty neat moment.
That's awesome. That's a really cool. I lived in the Seattle area for a little while, and we would always take people to Pike Place. If you haven't been there,
Cool.
It's just absolutely amazing what Beautiful. They do there. You said something that was really clicked for me, which was, you said you never wanted to be the victim of a situation. You could always control some aspect of that. I'm curious, was that something that was just part of your personality innately, or was that something you learned?
I can't tell. I couldn't pinpoint, but nothing bothers me more than someone complaining about a situation over and over and over and over, but doing nothing about it. So to me, if a problem keeps coming to me, it's more of like, well, what am I going to do to change it? Whatever you aren't changing, you are choosing. So for me, it's like the obvious thing is I couldn't change his job, but maybe I could change the environment he was working in. And it did help him. And so I feel the same with like when I work with the team or when I work with someone who's nervous about joining this business and they sit and say, I really want to change. I really want something different. I want something for myself. And I'm like, if you aren't choosing something, you will be in the same spot in 5 years. So what do you have to lose, right? So I feel like I just always feel like you have control over something.
No, I think that's and we've talked about this on this podcast about maybe not in those particular words, but about like how you handle yourself and how you handle the decisions that you make, even when you're not in complete control of a situation, is part of being a leader. So I'm really glad you brought that up because I think that's super relevant to what we're talking about, but also it fits right into the podcast, the theme. You also mentioned something about getting started in Neora. Like you weren't looking for this. Like you were doing something, like, and that was an incredible story too. So what happened? You were a customer at Neora.
I was a customer. I never even washed my face, so everyone can just use their judgment now on me. That's fine. I was 32, I think, at the time, and I looked in the mirror and I was like, I look even more tired than I feel with 3 kids under the age of 6. And so I saw a before and after picture on Facebook, and I thought, you know what? Even if I got a third of the results, I would be happy. It came with a 30-day money back guarantee. I bought it for myself for Valentine's Day as a gift. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. And I absolutely loved how my skin felt. I could feel it tighten. It was like kind of a glow. And I thought, oh my gosh, now what? Because I really kind of thought it wouldn't work and then I would just never buy it again. Because now I was like, okay, I am a stay-at-home mom. Mom guilt comes in if you're spending any sort of amount of money on yourself. And so I really kind of was like, well, she asked me like, how do you like it? I'm like, I love it, but that's kind of the problem. And she said, well, with 3 referrals, you can get your products for free. And I thought, I don't think there's any way 3 people aren't going to want this. Like, so for me, I didn't really see this as joining a business. I actually told her, never ask me to build a team. That is not what I'm here to do. That was not what I was looking for. And I think it's really a testament to, I needed to authentically get there. And so for me, I did not see this as a business. So that wasn't how I was sharing it at the beginning, but I was definitely sharing the product at the beginning because I'm like, if you're spending any amount of dollars on skincare, like you're going to want to try this. And so when I started making money, I was like, oh my gosh, why am I not telling other people about the best option that I thought, which was at least getting the products for free? And so once I started realizing, I know a lot of people who could use an extra income by sharing these products. And why am I keeping that to myself? Like I clearly saw it as the best option and I'm not going to tell them what the best option is. So once I kind of unlocked that for me, it was very easy then to share the gift of what this business is. So I started wanting, a kitchen backsplash because I'm like, listen, I just got a quote. I'm not spending $700 to glue tile to a wall. It just was hard for me to justify, but I thought, you know what? If I gave myself a full year. I'm like, if I can make $700 and never pay for my skincare for a full year, that's amazing. I was really excited about that. And I did that within my first 2 months. So I was like, okay, this might be more. And so I just kept going and dreaming just a little bit bigger and seeing what's possible and watching other people who had success doing this and being like, why can't I do that?
Was there a secret to it? Like you're watching other people. Did you, I mean, there has to be a learning curve. Did you find that it was hard to get into it? It sounds like you kind of just naturally slid right
I
into.
think once I authentically connected with why this is beneficial for someone else, the reason I was so hesitant about building a team is my perspective at that moment in time was someone joining my team was doing me a favor. And I
Okay.
don't like to ask for help. And I don't like to ask people for favors. And I don't want to feel like an imposition. Remember, I'm a people pleaser, Dave. So it goes
Yeah.
against everything about me to ask someone else to do something for me. So I was like, don't ask me to do that. Once I saw that, oh my gosh, they're not doing it for me, they're doing it for them. That's where I can kind of thrive. Because once I know I am going to be able to help somebody, and I can see the best and I can see the possibility for what's in other people, that was when it was kind of game over. Now, did we have our ups and downs? 100%. It was very helpful to have a supportive husband and to have a husband who has owned his own companies before, because he's like, listen, I am watching what's happening. You don't have overhead. You don't have employees. You don't have rent in a building. You don't have to pay insurance. You don't have to buy bulk inventory. Like, you don't have any of the things that come with what a traditional small business expenses has. You literally have the ability to just make the money. And he was like, so if you just keep growing and building and sharing what you're doing, he's like, I think you are on to a really big thing. And so I think who you surround yourself with, not everyone it's going to be their husband or their best friend. Sometimes it's the opposite. But I think who you surround yourself with matters. So I made sure that if I was starting to find people who were really negative, I still loved them. I still was their friend, but that's not who I surrounded myself with, because if it was important to me, my goals got a lot bigger. I was like, what if I can take the financial pressure off of him and he can find a job that he loves versus this job that he just does because it pays our bills. So once my why started evolving, I took it a lot more serious, and I worked a lot when no one was watching, and I did all the not fun things that most people don't want to do. And one day my husband called and said, I just got let go of our job. And that was a complete shock. I had been doing Neora for about a year, like 13 months, and I had already been able to replace his salary. So we went to work together. And I was like, well, then we're going to work for ourselves from now on. And so it's really, while I wasn't looking for this, and while on paper having no experience and no sales and terrified of all things like that, it was a real God thing that he was like, nope, you need that. I'm going to just drop this right here, because a year down the road, you're really going to need it. And I think along the way, it was like, I was always someone's wife or someone's mother. And while I was very happy and very content when I started this, I was Shalon. And I was like, well, there she is. Where's she been? It's just it is easy as a mom to kind of lose yourself in that a little bit. So it was a really neat kind of transition from being the mom and the wife to be also still being the mom and the wife, but being able to be a businesswoman at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And that's something I think a lot of people that we've talked to, that we've interviewed on this podcast, that they say, like, they found something that they didn't know was missing, or they kind of stepped into greater fulfillment. It sounds like that was also true for you.
Yeah.
Was that something that you knew that you wanted to find, or was that a discovery that you made along the way?
I feel like, I think the words money motivated get a bad rap because it makes you sound like, ooh, you're greedy or whatever. And I'm a believer that money just exposes more of who you are. So if you're a really good person, you can do more good. If you're a really bad person, you can do more bad. So I really encourage, I think women have a problem saying that they're money motivated because it makes them feel or sound a certain way. But I'm money motivated because I'm memory motivated. I want to make the maximum amount of memories with my family, with my friends, with my husband, with everybody that I can while I'm on this earth. And a lot of that takes money. Like, so, not all of it. There's a lot of free things that we do that do not take money, but there were a lot of things that I wanted to do personally for our family. I wanted to have a spot that we would go to every summer and create a family tradition. And we were able to do that. And so it wasn't something I always knew I wanted, but once I saw that there was really no cap to where I could go, it was like, I'm just going to keep dreaming as big as possible, because why not?
Yeah, for sure. Did this business, it sounds like it certainly opened your eyes to some other possibilities. What what was the biggest surprise? Like what was something that you didn't think was possible but came about because of this business? You mentioned having a place of your own that you could go every summer and vacation.
Mhm.
Was there anything else that kind of was like, oh my gosh, I never thought about doing X, Y, or Z, but now I've got the chance to do that?
Yeah, I would say a lot of this journey has been a whole lot of, wow, didn't know that was a thing. Didn't know that was a thing. I really love, I've always loved building relationships. That's not new, but I love coaching people from a place of a starting point and then watching the transformation, because a lot of people see the external, but very few people get to watch the internal. And that is really fulfilling for me, to watch someone go from like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can, but I really kind of want to like training on a stage about how they did and changing their family's life because of all of the things that they did. So I never knew that I would be like speaking on a stage and training and doing a podcast and things like that. So I love that. And, ever since I was 16, or really my whole childhood, we went, my family saved up all year to buy the gas to drive down to Florida to stay with my great aunt in Fort Lauderdale. And that was like our family's spot. And that's where we went for 2 weeks every summer. And it was such a gift to me. It was like my just home away from home. And I remember sitting on the beach at 16 and being like, I want this for my family. When I have kids, I want to have a place where we go and where we have those moments. Now, I never knew how I was going to do that, and I just never gave up on it, but I never was maybe actively pursuing it like, how am I going to get this? But once
Hmm.
this started developing and growing, I was like, this is how I'm going to do it. And I remember we went on vacation. I bought a keychain that said beach house, and I just put it in my office. And every day that you have the hard days and you have the days where people quit or they say no or whatever it may be, I looked at that keychain. I was like, I'm going to make this a reality. And we did. So we bought a beach house in Venice, Florida, and it is absolutely everything and then some that I wanted for a spot for our family. That is the place where we have made more memories than I could fathom. And so being able to do that was probably one of the most fulfilling. And it's not because it's a thing or a house or it's in Florida. It was like, this is my family's spot. Ooh, I could get emotional. That I've dreamed of since I was 16. And I walked into it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What there's a lot of great things about this business, and obviously like some of them that you didn't see coming, which I think is always that's one of my favorite parts, is like people like kind of stepping into a newer or bigger version of themselves and something
Mhm.
that they wanted. Maybe they didn't know they wanted until it became a possibility, which is super cool. But there's also the downside. There has to be a downside as well, right? Like what's been the toughest part about running your own business and being an entrepreneur?
I would say in the beginning, it was mom guilt. I went from being 24/7 mom and really at a beck and call, right? Like that was my full role. So I had a lot of mom guilt, and I would always find myself apologizing, like, oh, I'm so sorry, mommy has to go work, or oh, I'm so sorry, mommy has to do this event, or oh, I'm so sorry, mommy has to do a call. And over time, I started being like, okay, Patrick has never apologized for going to work, and he worked way more than I worked. And I was also kind of like, what am I telling them by apologizing for work? I'm telling them it's bad. So I really took a very, step back and was like, I need to include them in what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and give them their own little roles. So when they were little, it was roles like maybe they would help me with a sample bag, or maybe they would take a picture of something, or maybe, I would try and include them in some way. If I traveled, my oldest at the time, it was really hard for her whenever I maybe did an overnight trip somewhere. And so I bought her a journal, and I'm like, you're going to write all of your days down and what you do. And then I'm going to write mine. And then we're going to go to lunch when I get back, and we're going to share, what happened. And then it became something she looked forward to versus this, negative thing. And really a big piece of advice I have for any woman working at all is include your kids, include your family, because mom guilt, we're going to have it no matter what. It doesn't matter. We love to give it to ourselves. And, this whole life work balance thing, it's never going to be a 50-50, like even scale. That's just not how life is, but it's really about being present with what you are doing. So it would be making special time for my kids and then saying, and from 2 to 4, I'm going to be doing this, this, and this. And then I would remind them, I'm like, because we want to go to Disney World as a family. And I would remind them of maybe the next goal we have. So my family in turn became some of my biggest cheerleaders and my biggest supporters. And what started out as probably the hardest part for me ended up being the most rewarding, because whenever I hit life-changing moments and goals that I didn't even think I could hit, my kids were there, like watching the whole process. They've seen me set goals and miss them. They've seen me set goals and make them. And I think it's important for them to see both and not hide kind of that from them, because I want them to see the full process. So, and not apologize for it. So mom guilt was probably, I would say, my biggest hurdle that I had to overcome that I didn't foresee. And I think I'll always have some level of mom guilt for anything.
Yeah. Hopefully if you're listening to this, hopefully you're picking up on this, but there's a like there's a theme here where you're like turning obstacles into success stories. And it was whether it was your husband's work or identifying things that you wanted to like just kind of flipping the script on things and then turning things that were challenges into success stories. And I think that's really, really powerful. And I don't know if you've noticed that, or if you're intentionally trying to do that, or that's just maybe part of who you are. But I think that's really, really cool. I don't know if I don't
Well, I
know if
guess
you've
I've
noticed
never
that.
sat here and like told stories like this. So I guess I don't know that is a pattern, but it would, yeah, I guess so.
I
Look
mean, but it's great, and I think that's the lesson. If you're listening to this conversation, is that life is going to throw life at you. I think if you've been in business, if you've ever stepped out of your comfort zone, you know that you're going to run into challenges. You know you're going to have some difficult things happen, and it doesn't matter whether it's in business or parenting or marriage or whatever. There's going to be stuff that happens to you. But I'm really interested in whether that's like, is that something that you can learn? Did you learn that, or is that just inherently part of who you are?
I
And
think
if it's
I think having awareness is like, if you are constantly complaining about the same thing and you're constantly finding yourself worried about the same thing, and you're constantly if you're like, oh, of course this is happening. It always happens to me. That's like a sign to you to be like, I'm probably that's what I'm expecting to happen. So I'm a very big believer in, my oldest daughter, drive her crazy with this. It's like, what your brain is going to actively prove you right. Like, it's its job. It's survival and proving you right. So if you wake up and think this is going to be a horrible day, it's literally going to spend all day pulling things into you to be like, you are right. Look how bad this day is. This happened. Look how bad this day is. This happened. Look how bad this day is. So I think a lot of it has to do with what are your expectations. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't have negative thoughts ever. I mean, I'm a human being, but
Sure.
I really do try and focus on I want to focus on the outcome I want to have. So I didn't want my kids to like my biggest fear was like them resenting me working, right? Because that was just not their life for so long. And I think ooh, them being proud of me is really cool.
That is, yeah, for sure. That's really cool. One of the most rewarding things I think as a parent is, when your kids get to a certain age and then they can tell you, hey, all that advice that you gave me, all those things that you told me, well, you were right. And
Yeah.
like, and
Right now, we
like,
know nothing, Dave. We know
right.
nothing.
Yeah, no, and but then there will be and you have to really pay attention because those moments don't happen like very often. But I remember when one of my sons told me, he's like, man, I remember, all that advice that you gave me when I was a teenager and I was trying to do this or that and I think you were right. And I was like,
Could you say that one
what?
more time and can I get
Yeah,
it
I
on
was like,
video?
hold on. Yes, I need to record this. I need to show, first of all, I need to show this to your brothers and sisters. But but it's really, really cool. And you've done a lot. Like you have accomplished a lot in this business. And sometimes people think, oh, it's one of these little businesses. This is not a small business. Your team has done millions and millions of dollars in sales in the last 11 years. You've accomplished a ton of things. You've got the dream home, the beach house. What what keeps you going? Like what's next? Like what keeps you motivated to keep at it?
I have some even bigger dreams for our family. And honestly, I feel like, I have been doing this for 11 years, and I feel like where we are as a company, I feel like it's the biggest kind of pre-launch of my career. I feel like it's just kind of one of those moments you either really seize or not. And so I know the power. Like when I started this, I didn't really know what could happen. Like I've heard stories, I saw things, but when you live it and you're like, okay, I'm a normal person. I don't have any special skills. I didn't have some big team and this was like what I did for a living. Like this, I was a normal Midwestern mom, and I watched it and I'm like, so now my confidence on being able to help anyone who wants to do this is very, very high, mixed in with what's happening in our company right now. It's like I have goals for my family and myself, but oh my gosh, I am getting ready to get more front seats to life-changing transformations. Like I said to you before, that's probably the most fulfilling part of my job. And because of what we do, the more people I help that with, it helps me too. So it's like this everybody wins mentality, which I love. And Dave, you do know I am competitive.
Yes.
Me and Dave,
Yes.
he always needs to be on my team where I'm like, listen, if I lose, you cheated. Okay. That's just my motto. But for some reason in this atmosphere, I really only use that competitive part of myself against myself. So I really was never competing with other people, but I will let you know every week, every month, I needed to outdo me. And I think turning, not being competitive, because really I just used what everyone else is doing as like what's possible. And then I was like, but I got to compete Shalon versus Shalon to continue on kind of this journey.
No, that is great. And yes, yes, I can vouch for your competitiveness. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think competing and setting new bar for yourself, I think that's part of growth. I think that's part of being a high achiever. But last question, I'll let you go. This has been great, by the way. This is absolutely fantastic. And I hope people stayed for the entire thing. But um what advice would you give somebody who's looking at doing something like this? What would you tell them?
So I am by nature a pros and cons kind of a person. And that's actually what I did before joining this, because it was very scary to think, even though I didn't look at it as this big business, it was a decision that I was making, and it was money I was spending, and it was, things that were going to impact our family. And so I wrote down a pros and cons list. And at the end of the day, if I never made a sale, if I was as bad in my mind as I thought I would be at this, like, there's no way I'm going to probably make money. I'm horrible at sales, all of those things that tell you why you would not be good at it. Even if all of those things happened and I never made $1, I would literally be in the same spot I was if I never tried. So I'm like, well, what if I try? If I don't make any money, if I don't do anything with this, I'm no different. I'm not worse. My life isn't over. Nothing horrible is going to happen. I'm like, but what if I do something with it? What if I never have to pay for my skincare? What if I can get my kitchen backslash? And then, you start dreaming bigger. So I think a lot of people overthink it and they underestimate what they're capable of. So if you are wanting something different, again, this is the victim mentality. It's like, don't be a victim of that circumstance. Do something about it. Try something. Go outside your comfort zone. Take a first step in a direction that is not your norm, because you're saying you want something different. You are going to have to try something different. And this you don't have to take a life savings out. Like, it's not this big, I'm going to own this franchise for the next 10 years and hope I make my money back. It's a very simple way to start an entrepreneurship business and learn the personal development and the skills and the social media and all of the things that it takes to kind of run a business like this at a very little price.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think so many people out there, they want to do something, but they maybe don't know what that is. They don't know how to get started. And I love that advice. Like, just get started. Like, there's like you when you were talking about your story, like, you just dove in and you started doing the things and it worked.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. Man, Shalon, thank you so much for coming on. This has been an absolutely delightful conversation.
Thanks for having me.
And yes, thanks for saying yes. But and then everybody, like, subscribe, comment. This has been, like, if you liked what you heard here, like, let us know. Let us know what we're doing well, and we'll see you on our next episode of Built to Win. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Dave.
That was Dave Fleming talking with Shalon Murphy about how Neora has allowed her to achieve her personal and professional goals. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you learned something from it, please share it with a friend or colleague who you think would also benefit. And if you're new to Built to Win, we invite you to go back and listen to our story from the beginning. You can find us wherever you download your favorite podcasts. And while you're there, please rate us and leave a review to let us know what you think of the show.